Welcome to Bringing Back the Wild. In each episode, Mike Arnold explores how science, tradition, and hands-on conservation come together to protect the wild places and wildlife we care about. Your host, Mike Arnold, is a professor of genetics, a lifelong hunter, and a conservation biologist. Mike dives into the science and stories behind bringing wildlife species back and keeping the wild places wild. Sponsors of Bringing Back the Wild are Dallas Safari Club, conserving wildlife, engaging the public, ensuring the future. Lifeform Taxidermy, guardian of the hunter's dreams. Zambezi Delta Safaris, protecting wildlife, empowering communities, and defining adventure. Royal Outfitters UK, tradition in the field and excellence in the hunt. Choctaw Hunting Lodge, native land, exceptional wildlife, unforgettable hunts. Now here's your host, Mike Arnold.
Welcome to Bringing Back the Wild. Today's guest is a good buddy of mine, Robbie Kroger of the Origins Foundation. Y'all will know Robbie better than me, and I love that. So welcome, Robbie, to Bringing Back the Wild. Thank you for being here with us today. Tell us about where you grew up, how you got into hunting, and then we'll work into all of the great work you're doing now.
Those two things may surprise people that those two things aren't the same. I grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa, 8.5 million people. My mother used to say that I would have geographically impossible girlfriends because it would be an hour in one direction to pick them up for a date and then an hour back at midnight. Yeah, I grew up South Africa was an amazing place to grow up. Yeah, we had lots of crime. Yeah, you deal with everything, but the wildlife was amazing. That's why I am who I am today. Friend circle was amazing. Social circles were amazing, but those friend circles and social circles did not include hunting. I was very much in the friends group or the arena that I speak to today. I didn't think about hunting, didn't talk about hunting, didn't know anything about hunting. If you had asked me, what do you think about hunting? I probably would have had a neutral perspective or maybe slightly positive because of my grandfather's hunting history and my father's hunting history. But myself, I'd literally fired a shotgun a couple of times at some pigeons and doves when I was 16. That was it. The path that I wanted to go down from a wildlife perspective, when I was 16 years old, my grandfather took me to the Okavango swamps. I fell in love with swamps. I fell in love with wetlands. And that's what I wanted to study. And that's why I have a PhD in wetland ecology today. But in that world, I also wanted to explore wildlife and I wanted to be essentially the bush jockey, the game ranger. And the game ranger is the person who drives the vehicle, the Land Rover around. You've interacted with many of them. And he introduces the American tourist or any tourist to, that's an elephant. That's a baobab. Can I tell you about the baobab and the creme de tartare? And this is what it tastes like. And it's got an astringency to it. And so I quickly realized that wasn't something I was going to become. It was just something of a hobby. And even in those circles, there was no talking of hunting. There was no talking of any of those kinds of things.
Even in South Africa.
I even did a whole year-long wildlife conservation course in which every Monday night you would be in a lecture learning about astronomy and soils and insects and geomorphology and all these things. But interestingly enough, thinking back, there was no component of sustainable use. There was no component of hunting involved in that year-long course. But that changed when I came to the States. I came to the States to do a PhD in the University of Mississippi, and 3 days into me landing in this country, I met a 6'5", 280-pound redneck. His name's Landon Lee. And I took him to Africa for the first time last year for him to hunt.
Oh.
It just blew his mind what this was like. And he said, once we got to become friends, I said, do you want to hunt? And I said, yeah, I'd love to hunt. Being just indifferent to it. And that's just what people did. And I was looking for friends, and that's what we did. So I did everything I needed to do from a hunter education perspective. And I got my hunter's license, and then he gave me a chair and gave me a gun and sat me under a cedar tree and says, if something walks by, shoot it. And that was hunting. And that was my introduction to hunting. I arrived in this country in 2003. So that was probably 2006, 2007. So less than 20 years ago.
So was your first big game animal white-tailed deer?
Yeah, does. We were doe killing machines. And that's what we did. And that's all I knew. I didn't get into turkey hunting. I was very poor. I was a PhD student. You're a professor. I was making $9,000 a year. I think at the end of my tenure, I was making $12,000 a year. absolutely nothing. I was a bouncer in a bar to make ends meet. I was getting free food where I could get free food. I was living on ramen, that kind of stuff. And it was just, that's what we did, was doe hunt. Yeah, you're after the buck. This is rural Mississippi, few and far between. And this is before QDMA even came onto the scene.
Did you utilize the venison?
Yeah.
Because when we were poor, we ate every bit of our game meat, and we still do now that we're not poor. That was probably a real boon for a grad student.
Oh, I didn't have a freezer. I just had the rental freezer space that we would have. I didn't have enough money to buy a freezer. But no, we definitely had meat, which was definitely a plus. And then from there, it's just part of everybody's evolution, right? You get a better job, you get more resources lead to an expanded opportunity or expanded horizon when it comes to hunting and things that you can hunt, and got interested more in turkey hunting. I'm afflicted with the disease of turkey hunting today. And then bigger hunts and understanding what tags are and tag systems and, I can apply for this, or there's a public land opportunity that I can go do. And all of those things just start meshing and coming into the fold. And that's really how, again, where I started, where I grew up, and how hunting came into the fold.
So we're going to get to the work that you do now. So obviously you have your PhD in ecology. Now you're heading off to a faculty position, but let's step back for just a moment before I get you there and ask, when did you hunt in Africa for the first time? Have you ever hunted in Africa? I know you've taken friends, obviously.
I hunted legitimately. And when I say legitimately, like I paid for a hunt and spent 5-6 days by myself as a client hunting in Africa in November last year, 2 months ago. Yeah, people think in the job that I'm in, you get to hunt all over the world. You get to hunt all the time. No, I don't. My mindset is I'd honestly prefer to be doing the work that I do than hunting, because I feel like either not getting ahead of what I'm supposed to be doing from a narrative perspective, or I take it very seriously that we're a nonprofit and people give me money because of what we do. And I don't want ever to be seen as abusing that. And so I work all the time. It's a 24/7 job for me, 365. And the world doesn't go to sleep. I go to sleep for 8 hours, and when I wake up in the morning, my phone looks like a motorboard. Because I'm the kind of guy, there's two people in this world. You either have lots of red dots on your phone and you're comfortable with it, or you have no red dots. I'm a no red dot guy. But in the morning when I wake up, the world's been awake for 8 hours. I've been asleep for 8 hours. And I literally have a motorboard that takes me 2 to 3 hours every morning to catch up on. And so from a hunting perspective, sure, we take some opportunities when we can on the end of a project or before a project. And I never really take time off to enjoy the thing that I'm defending every single day.
So where did you go from University of Mississippi as a grad student?
So I was hired as a professor, first job out the gate in the Wildlife Fisheries Department at Mississippi State University. And so I was the interface between the upland wildlife system and the downstream fisheries system. I lived in the ecotone between the two of them. And it was funny. I was there for 6 years, so I just got tenure when I left, which is the weirdest thing. You receive tenure, and that's when you decide to quit. But I'd started this program, which is still in existence today. It was called REACH. And REACH stood for Research and Education to Advance Conservation and Habitat. And the whole purpose of that program was almost like the kernel of what I've built today. And so I knew that farmers were malaligned community, that they actually do a really good job, most of them, from an environmental, economics perspective, wildlife perspective. They do all this great best management practice for water quality work, soil erosion, soil integrity, and I wanted to show that work. I wanted to show those stories. I wanted to use science and data to prove that farmers are doing this, but look at the benefits that are coming because of what they're doing. And it was very localized, only in Mississippi. And we'd sign up farmers to be a part of the REACH program. Well, it's very similar to now the Origins Foundation, which is that we are a global entity interested in conveying the truth of another malaligned community, hunters, and sustainable use of wildlife, and saying, these guys actually do good things. Let me show you the good work that they do. Let me show you the people, the wildlife, the communities, everything that's tied in with what they do and who they are all around the world. And now I have operators and outfitters, a part of our Helix program, that are showing those benefits, just like that small Mississippi farmer. So I got hired in 2009. So this was 2011, 2012, 13 years ago.
So you had your tenure.
Yeah.
our lottery ticket in
Sure.
the academic world.
Yep.
So you step away from that. What did you go to do? Why did you away?
It's all about who you know in this world, right? And so in 2010, probably the biggest ecological disaster on this planet happened, which is the BP oil spill. And so they stood up a new federal entity out of the BP oil spill out of Washington, D.C. It was called the Restore Council. The Restore Council was made up of the 5 governors of the 5 Gulf states and 6 secretaries of 6 federal entities. So 11-member council. That council needed staff. And so they hired a chief executive officer from the Department of Commerce. They hired a chief financial officer from the Department of Commerce. Then they loaned in everybody else, and they loaned in the deputy executive director, who was a guy called Ben Skaggs, the EPA Gulf of Mexico program officer, non-regulatory body of the EPA. And they were sitting around, Justin and Ben, and unfortunately both are dead now, but they were sitting around a kitchen table and they're like, we need to hire a chief scientist. Who are we going to hire? And Ben was like, I know the guy. And he reached out to me because he had seen the work that I'd done in agriculture. And then he called the president of the university and said, you're sending this guy to us by request of the secretary of the Department of Commerce. And I got loaned out for 11 months. And in those 11 months, my eyes were open to how this world actually functions. In that the politics that we were scratching over, the kernels of seeds as professors that we were promising the moon and back for $50,000. All of a sudden, I was in charge of figuring out how to spend $1 billion. And I was like, whoa, this is how things work. And the politics of who gets what and how. And understanding that should be a mandatory course for every graduate student. It's 101 politics. Because you're so naive to what it is. And so I got an idea of what this world is in. There was a consulting company that was working for Mississippi. And they took an interest in me, and I just let it be known that Mississippi State's calling me back and I'm going to leave the council. And they approached me and I said, we need a chief scientist to do exactly what you just did for the whole Gulf. We need you to do it for Mississippi. So I got hired privately as a consultant, and that's what I did for 9 years. And in that 9 years, creatively, the first 4 or 5 was amazing because I was standing up science capacity in the state. I was the guy in charge of what are we going to spend $50 million on this year? And how are you going to put it in a strategic manner in which it creates multiple cumulative additive benefits? Halfway through that job, the creativeness got changed and I wasn't in front anymore. And as a professor, you're in charge of your own life, right? You live and die by yourself.
I call it being a tenured entrepreneur.
Exactly. And so when you're a consultant, though, you're no longer that entrepreneur. You're no longer that I need to be the face. You work for somebody else. And so that was a struggle for me. And so I came up with this idea that was, why don't we storytell about hunting and hunters?
Conservation only works when people benefit from it. At Zambezi Delta Safaris, that truth guides every decision. Without the surrounding communities sharing in the success of the safari operation, protection of wildlife would fail quickly and completely. Each season, Zambezi Delta Safari staff and their hunters deliver more than 30 tons of fresh meat directly to local villages. That single act removes the need for subsistence poaching and replaces desperation with partnership. Dozens of local men and women earn steady employment in anti-poaching units. Scientists live on site, studying wildlife where it actually exists. Helicopters patrol the skies not as spectacle, but as necessity. Millions of dollars flow through the operation each year, and most of it stays within the boundaries of Catata 11, circulating through people, protection, and place. This isn't charity, it's a system that works. Because when the community thrives, the wildlife survives. And when that happens, the wild has a future.
My grandfather was a prolific storyteller, prolific writer, and I started rereading some of his stories. He gave me a book called Old Man and the Boy, Robert Kroger. And when he was 16, he inscribed throughout the entire book, and I reread the entire book. And he had notes and everything in it. And Robert Kroger hunted with him in Mozambique, 1961, 1962. Honey Badger was written in Ruok's camp on the river, on the banks of the Save River, in the camp with my grandfather.
So was your grandfather a PH?
He was, I guess if he was alive today, he probably would say that he was, but he wasn't technically. He was more of like the client liaison. He was the guy that would schmooze the wife and drink with the husband until 12 o'clock in the morning and take them fishing and drive. And if somebody needed to go hunting, he'd go hunting because he hunted elephants. He was very familiar. Hunting leopards, elephant, buffalo, those were his things.
Was he a South African as well?
No, he was a German-Russian that immigrated in 54, Portuguese East Africa to start a trading company.
So that was your father's side.
Yeah, my mother's side is the Australian side. We don't like to talk about that side of the family.
We lived in Australia for 6 years.
So they're on the dark side of the family.
Aussies tend to be that way, but that's okay. Going then back, so you started reading. You said he was a prolific writer.
Prolific storyteller.
Did he write for magazines? Did he write books as well?
Safari International. I've got stories of him publishing in Safari International back in the 80s, 90s. His obituary was published in one of the big gun magazines here in America. Yeah, pretty amazing guy.
So you have a legacy there. So he mentored you, obviously, through what you were reading. How did you start what was referred to then, and why did you call it Blood Origins?
It actually wasn't the first name. First name was called In the Blood. And it came from that old VHS tape of Theodore Roosevelt, the 6th or the 7th, and his Tanzania buffalo hunt. It was on VHS. When I was 16 years old, I watched that thing 100 times, 150 times in Mozambique. And so I was like, man, that's it. And my grandfather wrote me a letter in 1996. It was one of those rice paper typewritten documents. And in the front, it says, I'm so glad you came to hunting on your own accord. It must be, quote unquote, in the blood. And so that's what we're going to call it. So if you look at any of our episodes of People, built it today, we've done 88 of them, I think. At the end, it says, everyone has their own story. This is mine. It's in the blood. So the first 3 episodes have been recorded, and that's how we ended it. Then I had a conversation with somebody that's big in the hunting industry space, and he says, do you own it? I said, what do you mean, do I own it? Yeah, I've got the federal trademark. And he's like, no. Is there somebody in your backyard right now? And I said, yeah, there's 2. Global, what were they called? In the Blood Outdoors in California. There was this guy who had a potential TV show. And then there was the Fire in the Blood. This other guy in Wisconsin. And it was Will Primos that I sat in this conversation with, and Will just said, change your name right now, change it. Before you have any heartache, change it. And so I was like, man, I don't want to change it. I've got this ending already. And we just thought through like heritage and tradition and where we come from and our origins and where's that origins buried. It's buried in your DNA, which is in your blood. So Blood Origins.
Okay.
And so we needed that name. And from the get-go, we wanted to create content for the non-hunting public, the general public. And as we got bigger and bigger and bigger, it became very clear that one of the biggest narratives around us is that you guys just kill, you have a bloodlust. And we had blood in our name. And it was like, see, you have a bloodlust. Your name even says it, Blood Origins. We needed the name for the hunting community. And when it got time that we felt like, all right, now's the time to change our name to just a more benign name, that's why we changed it. So we changed it to the Origins Foundation. Super simple. We've still got the same helix. The original word was blood. And if you go back to the original design, not many people notice it, but it's in the shape of a bullet. And the 2 O's in the middle have a DNA helix that create the 2 O's. And so that's all we have now is the helix. It's a simple moniker.
I love it being a geneticist. I really affirm what you chose. Talk to us about what the vision was of In the Blood and how it has evolved over time. If it has changed, maybe it hasn't.
180 degrees. I think in the beginning, all I wanted to do was tell hunters stories, like your story, your heart. And we still do that today. But the model wasn't there for us to make ends meet. It was essentially a for-profit model. It was a business, and nobody gave us money. And I didn't want to sacrifice our integrity to be like, oh, I have to wear a Kuyu shirt, or I have to wear this bino or this gun to make any money. 2020, friends of ours were like, how are you making this work? And I was like, it's about to end because we don't have any money. And I've spent essentially our whole savings account on it. And they said, why don't you turn yourself into a 501c3? Because right at that time, we started diverging a little bit from just telling hunter stories to them bringing my acumen as a PhD and scientist to bear in dissecting arguments and pushing back on certain things that were happening in our space. And as we started doing that, we noticed that people were really interested. They were very much interested in that kind of content. I was like, wow, maybe we should step into this sort of quasi-education advocacy space and defend what hunting is doing, which again speaks more to what we were born for, which is the mission of talking to the middle. And that's how it started. And the day I announced that we were a nonprofit, I guess we did it the right way. We built the brand, we built the voice. And then when we turned ourselves into a nonprofit and told everybody, that day we got 50 people gave us money. And I was like, oh man, this could work. This could really work. And and now we're on a rocket ship of rocket ships. And it's pretty humbling. And so, we evolve all the time. Like even now, like in the next year, we will evolve in terms of our content. And it evolves with the algorithm. It evolves with different social media platforms. It evolves with what works, what doesn't work, who's picking up what, how is it being communicated. You're constantly needing to change.
And so what about geographical change? Did you start in the blood in North America and then you spread out, or did you start somewhere else?
It didn't matter. We were interested in just telling stories. It didn't matter where they were from. Obviously, we may be a little Africa biased because I'm South African. I understand the system. I can speak to the system. But we've got fingerprints everywhere. We've got fingerprints in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Tanzania, France, Spain, Canada, various states in America. We're pretty much now arguably the largest fingerprint defending who we are in the digital space. Each of us have our niches. SCI has its niche. DSC has its niche. We have our niche. And we're complementary to everybody. We don't see ourselves in competition with anybody. We have two ethoses tied to who we are. The first ethos is a rising tide rises all ships. That's who we are. We're the rising tide and we'll rise everybody around us. And then we are also an I am second ethos. So if somebody's doing great work, if DSC's doing great work, we're going to champion that and say, look how good a job DSC's doing. If SCI is doing great work, hey, SCI is doing an amazing job. That's who we are.
Because you do have a footprint. Have you ever found some areas geographically are more difficult to work in as an advocate for conservation, community outreach through consumptive sports like hunting?
I'd say the UK has been a challenge. We've been trying to get in there for probably 4 years. And 10 days ago was the first time we ever put our foot in the United Kingdom. I was there for a week. And it was just a matter of, for some reason, we couldn't get a partner to be like, yes, we believe in what you're doing. Like we've seen it. Now we have that partner. BASC is that partner, British Association for Shooting and Conservation. Great organization. And just was like, yeah, we've seen your work, which is what you need, right? It's all about who you know in this world and proving yourself in this world. Now we've proven ourselves. They can see the merit behind partnering with us, and off we go. So that's been the toughest. It's just a very, I don't know if insular is the right word, but tough to break in and be like, hey, we're not here to ruffle any feathers. We're not here to take anybody's turf. We're more here, oh, you want to celebrate us? And that doesn't happen. Like, for instance, I said I want to get a lifetime membership to BASC, and I want it to be under the Origins Foundation. I want the nonprofit to buy a lifetime membership in your nonprofit. They're like, we don't have that. I said, because no nonprofit has ever asked you, can we do this for you? Which again, just speaks to us and our ethos.
I was waiting and expecting you to tell me France.
If you dig into France, the hunting scene in France is huge. Number one. Number two, they're so well organized. There's so many hunting federations with so many hunting members with so much money. Like we were there doing a Saving Bambi piece, which is roe deer, thermal drones in May, June before they cut hay. That project, that number one is an amazing story. Nobody knows that story of hunters helping saving baby roe deer from farmers' implements, chopping them up. But secondly, like interacting with the hunting community there and the hunting organization that's over this area, they had 26 full-time employees. There was one organization of 20. I was like, where are you getting all the money? And it's hunter licenses, funding all these guys. Their hunting seasons are short. And I said, what are you doing outside the hunting season? Oh, we're working with farmers, human-wildlife conflict, working with agriculture. You have to go beyond just scratching the surface to understand what's going on.
So talk to us about, yes, you're going to evolve, but do you have a 3 or a 5-year vision of where you want to see yourself?
I think we'll be owning the narrative even in a bigger, stronger capacity, a more strategic capacity. That's our number one objective, is just to own the narrative. And that forms into different shapes. All the stuff that we do now is amplified in 5 years' time. We're into much larger sort of environmental investigative pieces around the benefits of hunting. We also have strategic priorities in the wildlife conservation space: cheetahs, rhinos, and black bears. Three things are, we feel like we can take a big step in those three spaces, all of which are, again, owning the narrative in those spaces. Cheetahs, there's a significant niche, we believe, in just getting your hands dirty and doing things instead of just stymieing the system. Rhinos, I believe there's a narrative push there that needs to happen in the next 18 to 24 months around rhino horn trade. And then black bears, specifically here in America, is probably the species that has the most hunter-harvest opportunities in front of it in the next 5 years. There's also some opportunities from a technology perspective when it comes to thermal drones and getting better bear density estimates instead of the tried and traditional hair snare method that uses genetic analyses of capture-recapture technique.
Do you ever see yourself franchising what you're doing?
No, we've got affiliates. So we've got like Wild Origins Australia, we've got Wild Origins India, we've got Wild Origins Canada. If that's what franchising means, then yes. But they're own independent things, but they feel like us, they speak like us.
To my mind, that's franchising you've already done. You've multiplied, right? We all see this narrative as being essential. Yep. It's the reason I wrote Bringing Back the Lions about Cantata 11. It was as an apologetic in some ways for this narrative.
I even had this conversation with the Uber driver from the airport here, like elephants, they're endangered. And I was like, yeah, they're classified as endangered, but they're not. So here, let me tell you, there's more elephants today in Africa than probably they've had in a century. So does that mean they're endangered? Probably not. Are we going to get back to where they're supposed to be in 1700s? No. Can't rewind the clock. And those 500,000 elephants are probably living on a tenth of the habitat that they used to have. So now we've got another problem. And you can't give elephants away in Africa. You can't give elephants away for free in South Africa. Largest elephant population in Botswana, yada, yada. Mine was blown. He's like, I didn't know. And that happens to us weekly through social media and digital media.
Robbie, I'm going to let you go. Folks, I didn't tell you, but we're at the Dallas Safari Club convention, and Robbie, bless his heart, got off the plane, raced over here, and he doesn't need to be talking too much more because he's going to be talking a lot. You're speaking at the Life Member Breakfast.
MC on Thursday night, keynote speaker on Friday morning, MC Friday, MC Saturday.
So you're going to MC when I'm up on the stage.
That's correct.
Robbie, before we leave, how do people find you?
Yeah, it's super easy. Just type in the Origins Foundation or Blood Origins if you want into any of the platforms, any of the social media platforms, you'll find us. We're not hard to find. And if you want to reach out, DM us, message us, tweet us, whatever, you'll find us.
Is it easy to donate?
Yeah, cost of a cup of coffee a month, $5 a month. That's all we ask. Easy. There's donate buttons everywhere.
Guess what, folks? I'm now a donor.
There we go. I like it. I like it.
Thank you again, Robbie.
You're
welcome. What a wonderful time, and thank you for taking time. I know you're busy here.
No problems at all.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks for listening to Bringing Back the Wild. For more stories from the field, conservation-driven articles, and Mike's books, visit MikeArnoldOutdoors.com. Until next time, keep bringing back the wild.